start. Okay, about Brahma, we are trying to establish it. So, in the first verse of this chapter, what did we discuss? We had a long discussion. Yena ichyate shrunoti idam jigrati vyakaroti cha swadva swadu vijanati tat pragyanam udiritam. So, pragyanam Brahma, we have to make sense of both these words. First, what is that pragya? Which is we discussed, which is far subtler. It's the causal, underlining causal principle of everything that exists, including buddhi. That particular energy, that particular wisdom, that particular consciousness with which the eyes can see, the ears can hear, the mind can think, and the chitta can remember whatever is happening, whether it is outside or inside, that you make sense of, that is verily pragyanam. And now we are not trying to see, we are not reducing Brahman to pragyanam. In fact, trying to have that pragyanam is ekatvani, same consciousness. Like, for example, it's the same Suddha Chaitanya which is equated with Ishvara, becomes Param Brahma, infinite pure consciousness. In our level, where it is the Avidya Upahita Chaitanya, we have a different way of looking at it, and we call it the Pratyak Chaitanya. That means the contours of that consciousness are kind of fixed by the body mind complex that we have. Like, for example, if you look at a pot, the space within that pot, we call it pot space, but essentially it's space only. We give it an adjective. This adjective is not Visheshana here, we call it an Upadhi. The difference between a Visheshana and Upadhi in Vedanta, that in case of Visheshana, there is an organic linkage. If you say kind person, that kindness is kind of associated with the person. But when you say Upadhi, there is a crystal and you bring a green color flower, it looks green, red color flower, it looks. So that means in Upadhi and Visheshana, the difference in Lakshanika terms is that Vidyamanatve sati Karya Anvayatve sati Itara Vyavartakam, a differentiator which is present there, and then it is organically linked to the Vishesha, what you are describing. That is Visheshana or adjective. And what is Upadhi? A kind of an adjunct or a kind of a superimposition. That is Vidyamanatve sati, it is there, like the crystal looks red or green. Karya Ananvayatve sati, because that greenness or redness which looks to be there in the crystal is not there in the crystal. It's actually just being reflected there. Therefore, this Upahita Chaitanya, whenever you use that, we have to understand. Sopadhika Brahma, because the Upadhi is just a superimposition. It doesn't affect the Swarupa of Brahman. Yeah, this is how it appears. Because that is critical to Vivartavada and the way we are trying to make sense of the Mahavakyas. We did the whole Dvaita Prakarana, that there are a lot of things which are appearing, but there is a foundation. And that foundation alone is real. Whatever is appearing is just a phenomenal manifestation, not fundamentally real. Now, therefore, what did we get? That Pragyanam becomes Pratyak Chaitanya. Yeah. And then, in case of they use the word Jiva Shakhi, Ishvara Shakhi, there are so many technical terms they use in Advaita Vedanta, but we had a very long discussion that all these several functions of the brain, yeah, different cognitive functions, so to say, all these cognitive functions, if you look at it, and if you let's look at the names, each word. So, for example, listening, smelling, ability to speak, having vivek of what is tasty, what is not tasty, and everything is prajnanam. Okay. And then all this, that there are different layers, and the Taittiriya Upanishad also we look at it, and then we said all these 19 cognitive functions, all that is there. Like, for example, what? You have perception, working, memory, your semantic knowledge, the karmendriyas doing executive function, your motivation, everything is verily are essentially prajnanam, and then they are appearing in different ways. Let's return to the original discussion here in this sloka, and we'll go to the next verse. Now we have understood that whether it is Jihendriya or Shravanendriya, okay, or Tvagendriya, all the sense organs you have, you are making sense of the world. What is the underlying principle? That is verily prajnana. And you can have different kind of manobuddhis, and I don't want to enter into all of it again because you have done it. It's there at long discussion we had, all the commentaries you have read. Now he's saying, okay, if that is the case, prajnanam brahma, but this consciousness which is all pervading, it is manifesting sometimes as an animal, sometimes as a fish, sometimes as a bird, sometimes as a plant, sometimes as a mountain, sometimes as a human being. At least the living ones, if we look at it. The differentiator here is how pure or clean is the reflector. Now, if you have a circular mirror in your hand and then the sun gets reflected, that spherical mirror that you're holding might actually misguide others as if it's the sun emitting light. Whereas if that is a slate piece, it's a slate or it's just a piece of wood or anything, same shape, but it will not reflect that light. Sajiva, Nirjiva, living, non-living. This distinction we are making on the basis of how well are the reflectors. Depending on our own papa punyas, we have got different kinds of existence with concomitant consciousness of brain functions, intellect, intelligence, all that. Therefore, in the next word, Brahma Savdartham Bibrunoti Chaturmukheti. So, Pragyanamam Brahma. So, in how many forms that Pragyana works depends on in what forms the Brahman manifests. And that is what is captured in the verse number 2. Chaturmukhendra deveshu Manusya Swagavadishu Chaitanyamekam Brahmataha Prajnanam Brahma Mayapi Chaturmukha Indra Deveshu. So first, starting with a celestial level of living beings, which are there in the Puranas and Agams and the scriptures. And as part of our discussion, whether actual devatas exist or not, for Vedanta, it's only one thing that is fundamental existence, with the Brahman. And rest of it, they say these are stories, they're epithets. These are just kind of stories to explain reality to us. They don't have any fundamental reality of their own. They are also upadhika. With upadhis, they exist. And depending on our own mental framework, we may give more importance to a ghost, or maybe some devil or angel. We can invent extraterrestrial or celestial beings, depending on what kind of culture in which we have been brought up and what words make sense to us. So he starts with our particular, the pantheon in which different gods and goddesses are there, and to explain Vedanta, say Chaturmukha Indra Deveshu is the top guy, is the king of all the gods, the celestial beings. And those who have done, they say those who do a lot of punyas, they might elevate themselves to the next level of existence, not as human beings. You have Yaksha, Rakshasa, right? Gandharvas, finally Devatas. They are at the higher levels. So in the Devatas, they also have a kingdom which is very subtle. It's not a material kingdom. There are no physical beings. Why? Because after we abandon our bodies, we actually move with our subtle bodies, the sukshma sariras. And obviously in the Swarga, everything is sukshma, everything is subtle. There is no Swarga Loka where you can use your telescope, Hubble telescope, to take pictures of them. Or you can send some smart drones to record what's going on in Swarga. No, that's not possible. Because they're not available to physical eyes. They're not available to cameras or stuff like that. They're too subtle. They are realities which exist. Like you have energy fields, which are not captured by cameras. where you need physical shape and size, but you can have fields of radiation. Then you need different ways to capture that. Similarly, the Swargaloka is not a physical reality for the eyes. Chaturmukha Indra Deveshu. Among the Devatas, you have Chaturmukha Indra, is the top guy, right? And then you have other Devatas. Manusya Aswagavadishu. Then he's going to the next level, where we have Mishra Karma, means Papa as well as Punya. Then we have Manusya Janma, not perfectly pious in our earlier lives. Therefore, Dasa Purnamasaabhyam Swarga Kama Yajeta. The one who wants to go to Swargaloka needs to do this karma khandas. Somena Yajeta Swarga Kama. You do Soma Yaga. Jyotishtam, there are so many yagas are there. Vishwajit Yaga. So you want to go to Swarga. If you go to Swarga, you will be there for a while. In that period, you are like a devata. You have done a lot of punyas, and they are devatas. They hang around there. They are called amaras because they will not die. Because Martya Loka is here. Here people die. In Swarga Loka, nobody dies. They descend. They don't die as such. There's no death there. Manusya Aswagavadishu, then the animal planet, the animal kingdom. Aswa, the horse, cow. You are slightly actually, Aswa and cow are the ones earlier, he may have been sinners, but with a mixture of some punya, less harmful crime, so to say. So animal bodies, but very useful, lovable animals. Otherwise, you would become like an insect or maybe a pig or a very unlovable, dirty street dog who is hated by all. Yeah. Manusya Ashwagavadishu. Why are we discussing this? What is the benefit? Now Vedanta says in the next half of the shloka, Chaitanyam Ekam Eka, that pure consciousness which pervades all of this, whether it is a devata or it's a dirty looking pig or swine, it's the same consciousness there. The Brahman is there in the dog and the dog eater, the animals, human beings, birds, reptiles, plants, mountains, everywhere. It's the same Chaitanya which pervades everything. Chaitanyam ekam Brahma ataha pragyanam Brahma mayyapi. Therefore, pragyanam Brahma is mentioned. It's verily that pragyanam Brahma mayyapi. It's also there in me. Yeah, Brahma mayyapi. Now let's look at the commentary, which is very interesting because in this commentary, we would get introduced to a bit of what is called adhyasa in Vedanta. What is superimposition? Why we see a rope as a snake? Why Brahman, which is Nirupadhika, which is Suddha Chaitanya, which is Nirvikara, Nishkala, Desha, Kala, Vastu, Paricheda, Sunya, is not limited by space, by time, by physical existence, and yet it assumes the form of a dog or a cat or a bird, isn't it? Why? Why that happens? Therefore, he's saying, Chaturmukha Indra Deveshu. That is the first word in the next verse. Chaturmukha, who is this? Hiranyagarbha Samavartat Agre. That is the Rigveda Samhita, it says. 10.121.1, 1, the location of this particular. Hiranyagarbha Samavartat Agre. The first creation, Karya Brahma, is the Hiranyagarbha. Ityadi Sastra Prasiddha Srishtigartha Prathama Sariri is the first body. So you have Suddha Brahma, Maya Upadhi becomes Ishvara. He creates this 5 Tanamatras, Sukshma Bhutas, Buddhi, Mahatattva, and he creates the Hiranyagarbha. And then he says, Aham Bahusham Prajaya, then he creates. We have discussed all that in the Dvaita Viveka Prakarana, how this Srishti happens. The Srishtikarta Prathama Sariri, the first one, he's Sariri because then he creates a lot of other bodies. Indraha Sukrita Phala Paripakena. How did he become Indra? Is there actually a location called Indra Deva would exist? No, it's a human being only. A human being, because of a lot of punya karmas, only human beings can do a lot of karmas. So the devatas don't have right to do karmas. Agnihotra, they know. Punyas can be done by only human beings, and papas can be done also by devas, but punyas only we can do. Sukrita phala paripakena, when it matures, devaraja padam avesito akamahata. Now he goes to the top level. He becomes actually head of the Devaloka. Akamahataha. Now is beyond the minimalistic, restricting, constraining, blinding desires that we are victims of. Is akamahata, is beyond these low level desires, is gone to a higher celestial level. Akamahataha shrotya agranihi. And as per the karma kandas, everything, he was ahead of others. And therefore, devasya teshu uttama dharmasu. And then devahasya and other devatas also, the higher level of same existence with different celestial beings. Teshu uttama janushu. And then also they are uttama dharmas, means they have got a good, very privileged birth as a result of lot of punya karmas. Manushya aswagavadishu manusyaha madhyama dharmana. What are we? We are not having a lot of punyas to become devatas, nor do we have a lot of papas to become animals. We are in the middle. Spiritually, in the cosmic whole, we are the middle class. The human race is the middle class in the cosmos, neither too sinful nor too pious, and therefore caught in the middle. Madhyama dharmanaha, aswagavadayaha, adhama dharmanaha. What about the animals? Cows and horses, they could be very expensive, isn't it? The value of a cow sometimes can be thousands and thousands, hundreds and thousands of dollars. Depends on the breed and how well it's reared. So and those who go to very famous horse races, they cost you a fortune. So you have these horses and cows and elephants and all that, but they are adhama dharmana. Why? There is a sharp decline in the level of their ability in terms of the cognitive functions. In terms of, some people say they also have intelligence. How do they live? They have intelligence, but the quality of their cognitive functions are very limited in nature. मनुष्य अश्वगवादिषु मनुष्य मध्यम जन्मानः अश्वगवादेह अधम जन्मानः आदि शब्देन अश्वगवादयः आदि शब्द is there. What do I take there? Because you have two more categories of living beings. You have Svedaja and Andaja, then Udvija. Udvija is the plant kingdom, and Andaja, all the birds who are born out of eggs, also the reptiles, and Svedaja, tiny living beings, all the insects and germs, they're born out of this biochemical substance in the body. Or Sweda is not generally sweat. It could mean any biological organism which is of liquid form, in the sense they are not significantly visible as to how they are born. Teshu tat adisabdena andajadi kshudra mishrani udiritani. So all these mixed and smaller entities which are still living. Teshu yat pratiyate chaitanyam tad ekam eva. The intelligence that you attribute to all these categories of living beings, whether it is what? Whether it is a human being, whether it is a god or a goddess, a celestial being, or is an animal, or is an insect or a reptile. Consciousness pervades them all, and that is ekameva. Chaturmukhadi sarva upadhinam vyavritataya parasparam bhinnatvepi. Now the upadhis are different, isn't it? What is an upadhi? Upadhi is bhedaka. It creates some bheda. In Vedanta, there's a lot of discussion, isn't it? So you have a blue flower is one upadhi who comes near the crystal. There's a crystal there. Then the crystal looks red because the flower is red. It's a hibiscus or a rose flower. Then you bring a blue lotus. It looks blue. Upadhis create bheda. You can distinguish it from another crystal, which may be blue, another may be red. None of these crystals have those colors. They are all white. Essentially, they are quartz, isn't it? So, I think it's SiO2, CR7 or whatever, O7 in the end, quartz, whatever. Now, coming back here, itar because upadhinam vyabhritataya, they're different from each other. Paraswaram bhinnatvapi, they're different from each other. Vipasutva upadhi, manushyatva upadhi, devatva upadhi, they're different from each other. Bhinnatvapi sarvatra chaitanyasya anubhrittataya. The pervading principle is actually the pure consciousness. The crystal exists at all places. Colors are different. These crystals look different. Similarly, you have Chaitanyasya Anubhrittateya, the consciousness is all pervading. Aupadhikam Chaitanyam Upadhi Pariharena. Parihane Ekam Eva Vitishtate. So, now come back to our Drishtanta. You have 5 crystals. So, you have a red flower, a blue flower, a green flower, and then just imagine red, orange, brown. Then the crystals assume those colors. Then you remove those flowers from near these crystals. Then they start dazzling as white, as good as zircon or something, if not diamond. If you put proper light, they might also dazzle as if they are pieces of diamond, isn't it? So the upadhis are gone, colors are gone. What do you have? You have the same white, dazzling white color of all these crystals. Now come to the prasanga, drashtantika. Now the Chaitanya, you have this pasutva upadhi, devatva upadhi, somebody like a devata, somebody is a rich man, somebody is a poor man, somebody is very smart in mathematics, the other one is a great poet, the other one is a great singer, the third one is a great dancer, somebody is a football player, smart one, like Ronaldo or Messi. These are upadhis. These are all pervading consciousness. All the 22 players that you are watching in World Cup, is one consciousness. Upadhis are different. Therefore, you see, Bhinnatvapi Sarvatra Chaitanyasya Anubhrittataya Upadhikam Chaitanyam Upadhi Parihane. If you remove these upadhis, Ekam Eva Vatistate, that consciousness alone is real. The crystal is not having any colors. Evam Cha Sarva Vyapakatvad, that prajnanam, that consciousness we're talking about, is sarva vyapakatvad vyapaka rupartha bodhaka brahma savadasya avideyam. What is avideya? Avidhan is the word. Avideya is what is being referred to, what is being described. Sarva vyapakatvad, that prajnana. Vyapaka rupartha bodhaka, that vyapaka rupata is there in something. And you have a sort of word to explain what it is. So there is consciousness in all few people. You say, this consciousness, what are you referring to him? One of the brilliant mathematicians. Another fellow has a lot of creative intelligence. Who is he? You say, it's Beethoven, he's Mozart. These guys have same cognitive functions, same creative intelligence, manifesting as the greatest musician. And someone else, maybe Rembrandt, the greatest painter. So what is it? Depending on upadhi, they are assuming different forms. That's what he's saying, that Brahma sabdasya avideyam tadabhavitum arhati. Why did you use the word prajnanam? Why did you use someone else? Because Brahman has no word as such. Because Brahma means out of brihad. It's very large and big. It's all pervading. Therefore, one word is using Brahman. But how do you make sense of it? What is that? We're using another word called prajnanam. Because we want to emphasize on that the brilliance of the consciousness aspect, with which everything else we make sense of. Everything else becomes intelligible. We are referring to that principle, that aspect of it. Brahman has no aspects, but we are trying to understand that effulgence, which sort of informs what Brahman is, and we're using the word prajnanam as the Brahman becomes avideya. This is the word. Paraswara Bilakshananam, they are different from each other. Devata, Manushya, Pasu, Udvija, Andaja, all these birds and reptiles. Paraswara Bilakshananam Chaturmukha. And who is this? Chaturmukha Amara. That's Brahma, that is Prajapati, Indra, because they are Devatas, Chaturmukha Amara. So Chaturmukha means what? You start with Hiranyagarbha. Amara, you refer to the Indra, because he can't be killed. The king of the Devatas. Nara, then you have human beings. Aswadi, all the animals. Vyaktinam tatra aropad. These upadhis are imposed. Like you bring a green flower near the crystal, it looks green. These upadhis are essentially creating names and forms. Therefore, aropad, anekadha pratiyate. Same consciousness is now appearing as devata, as manushya, as animals, as birds, as reptiles, plants, everything else. Give me an example. I'm finding it very hard to understand, the student says. Then the author is now explaining, Yatha Rajjo Sarpadhyasat Tadrupena Pratitihi. You didn't understand, I'll tell you. You have a rope, but then Sarpadhyasat, because we do a superimposition, looks like a snake. Because of there is dullness in that room, I cannot clearly see it's a snake, a rope, so I call it a snake. Sarpadhyasat tadrupena pratitihi. Because of adhyasa, sarpadhyasa, it looks like sarpa. So there is a human being. Yeah? We have already discussed that in the Dvaita Viveka Prakarana. Okay. So let's imagine there are four guys, and there is one beautiful girl who enters into that common room where they're sitting, some young students in a college. One of the students loves to play guitar. What fantasy he has? This girl is one who loves music and would like to become a singer. Then we both can do a show on the annual day. She's a smart looking girl. And then there is one guy who is into literature. He fantasizes this girl loves poems. He's a small time poet. The third one is a painter. She has lovely eyes. She looks very artistic. It looks like she would be interested in painting. So she would like to assist me in organizing a painting competition or painting exhibition at the school. And the fourth one, he is very good at science and mathematics. And he looks at her, says that, she looks like a very sharp girl. I think she's going to join the science club, which I manage. 4 boys, 4 fantasies, 1 girl. She doesn't have anything to do with their fantasies. But they are all imposing. She's there. She had come from some other school for some competition. She's there for half an hour with her teacher. She has a cup of coffee, and they both vanish. What happens to their fantasies? They stay with them. The girl doesn't carry any of their fantasies with her. These are the adhyasas, potential adhyasas, which they will put on the girl, and she becomes a singer and a poet and a painter and a mathematician. For these 4 boys, she leaves. Game over. Right? Similarly, he's saying Yatha Rajjo Sarpadhyasa Tadrupena Pratitihi. Now he's saying, what is the reality? They get a chance to say hello to her. And it appears that actually she's none of these. She's none of these. She's more interested in social work. She wants to be a nun. And the lady with whom she came, she's the matron, and she is in a convent. She's not wanting to be a poet or a painter, or a singer or a scientist. She wants to be a nun. She wants to be in a charity organization working for the poor. She's a spiritual person. Similarly, he's saying sahajastitim astitapi. Even though the rope is there in this place, it's not confused about anything. Rajjuhu vrantya sarpa iva visheshakarena abhavasate. It's a rope which appears like a snake. And who is seeing the snake? The guy who is confused. The rope has nothing to do with our confusion. The rope is happily rope. We are scared of it as if it's a snake. That little girl who came is a nice girl from a good family. She's brought up in a very religious family, wants to do charity work and be part of some kind of a organization where she can be a nun. These 4 boys are smart, Alex, very intelligent. They want to draw the attention of the girl. They have adhyasas superimposed on her. She has nothing to do with that. Like the rope has nothing to do with how we think of it as a snake. Yada deepena nayam sarpaha rajju eva iti yathartha jnanam utpadyate. When these boys actually say hello and they get to know this girl is different, she was there with the matron of some kind of a girls' school or a convent, and she's going to go and do her job. She hasn't come to be part of your school. She's not looking for admission in your school. She had come to meet her cousin sister, something like that. Yada deepena nayam sarpaha, and you put light, you actually find out who she is. That is the light of knowledge. And then it's not a snake, it's a rope. Nayam sarpaha rajjur eva iti. Then no, it's actually a rope. It's not a rajju, it's not a snake, it's not a sarpa, it's a rajju eva. Yathartha jnanam utpadyate. You have now valid knowledge. What did you have earlier? You had what's called faulty knowledge, or what is called, Brahma Jnana. Indian tradition is the only one in which we not only talk about valid knowledge. In the West, if you say knowledge, it's valid knowledge. In the East, if you say jnana, that's just a cognitive thing. It's a cognitive event. It could be Brahma Jnana, it could be Yathartha Jnana. And what is the difference? Tadvati tat prakaraka buddhi. Tat prakaraka jnana. So there is a snake, you have snake jnana, that is Yathartha Jnana. There is a rope, you have snake jnana, you have sarpa jnana, that is ayathartha jnana. Tad abhavavati tat prakaraka jnana. It is not there, but you have this imagination. That is Brahma Jnana, faulty cognition. So Rajju Bhrantya Sarpaiva Vishesha Karanava Bhasate Yada Deepena Na Ayam Sarpaha Rajjureva Iti Yathartha Jnana Utpadyate Tada Swayam Nirvikara Rajjur Avatistate. Nirvikara means no vikara, no modification. It doesn't appear like a snake. Without these false modifications which happen in our brain, the rope remains the rope. Sa eva rajju. Sa eva means rajju. Tatra adhyastasya sarpasya karanam bhavati. What is the cause of it appearing as snake? Tell me. One is our ajnana. But what is the upadana karana of that snake? Obviously, it has to be the rope, because without the rope, can you see the snake? If rope is there, then you can have a false knowledge. If the girl entered that room with her mother, and maybe she is in a charity organization, she has nothing to do with mathematics, physics, or painting, or poetry, or music. She doesn't want admission in the school. 4 boys are having fantasies about her. She has nothing to do with it. Therefore, he's saying, even then, this imagination in the minds of these 4 smart boys, that she's a poet, she's a painter, she's a singer, and she's a mathematician, these are triggered by her. So that she's the cause, not responsible for it. What is responsible is their ajnana. But she sort of is the foundation on which we have this Bhranti Jnana. Like on Rajju, we have Sarpa Jnana. We think about it as a snake, even though it's a rope. Evam avidyaya nirvikare param brahmani. Now we are coming to our prasanga, the prakarana. Tad abhave means rajju abhave bhrantir eva abhavat. Without a rope, you cannot see a snake. Now, so the sansara is there if Brahman is there. The sansara is superimposed on Brahman. We are trying to refute a kind of we are removing that anxiety or temptation that anybody may have to believe in the Buddhistic formulations that all these is interdependent and there is no foundation. We don't disagree with them. They are like close cousins. And yet the fundamental difference is that we believe in an underlying principle, an underlying consciousness, which is the foundation for the mischief. Without that foundation, there could be no wrong cognition. That is our view. And they believe wrong cognition is possible, yogachara, without demanding this presence of a certain foundation, which Vedanta insists on. Yeah. Now, he's saying tadavave evam avidya nirvikare parampare brahmani sarva jagat adhyasate. Now this jagat we are superimposing on Brahman. Everything is consciousness. We see ghata, pata, manushya, deva, money, house, all that. Yena tattad vishayakarena vartaman iva pratiyate. Tattad vishayakarena. Depending on the adhyasa, depending on our vasanas, they all appear vartamanam iva as if it exists. Iva pratiyate, but they are not there. Now, evam cha tad jagataha karanam bhavati. And therefore, this Brahman is actually the cause. The Bhagavad Gita says, I am the cause of all causes. Everything emanates out of that. In the Vaishnava culture, they believe that Bhagavan Vishnu is lying in the Karana Shagara. That is their own theological formulation. Now there is a doubt in the mind of the student who is trying to understand this Vedanta, which is captured in the next sentence, which is very interesting. He says, Nanu anirgyata purva sarpa swarupasya kasyapi kadachit rajva na sa pravrantir udeti. But please, if I have never seen a snake in my life, There is a rope. How can I get confused? It's a snake. I must have seen a snake somewhere. Then that I'm superimposing here, isn't it? These boys must have seen a girl who is a good singer, seen a girl who is a good painter, and a girl who is a very good, mathematician. They have seen these people. Therefore, this new girl, they are thinking maybe she is also one of interesting persons that would be part of our club in the school. Now come here. Nanu anirgyata, but if you don't know, purva sarpa surupasya kasyapi kadachid rajva na sarpa bhrantir udeti. You cannot have sarpa bhranti, you cannot confuse it as snake if you have never seen a snake in your life. Tatha eva devadinam ajnada parvataya brahmani nat tad bhrantir eva avakasa iti chet. Now all these devadatam ajnada parvataya. Therefore, if they don't know what is Brahman, that's how they are caught up in this whole conundrum. Whether it is Swargaloka or Martyaloka, these people are trapped, isn't it? So they don't know what is Brahman, and they don't know what is Jagat because they are in Swargaloka. And then how can they superimpose something about which they have no idea they're trying to say? It is just no, it's not possible. We are not inventionists. When adhyas we are saying, we know this doubt you would have in your minds. And how is it explained? Adhyatatvam matra upadeshesya eva drishtantena vivakitatvat. Now he's trying to say the drishtanta and drashtantika, the example and the subject matter of discussion. You do not want to see a direct parallel of all the qualities. Then there will be a problem. We are just trying to say how the superimposition happens. This is a problem with the Nyayakas. They would always say the Upadhi and other things you are saying, Adhyasa, you say, okay, snake and Rajju, they are all both outside. No? But Brahman is not a physical being. On this non physical being, the qualities of physical thing, how do you superimpose? What does it mean? It makes no sense to us. Therefore, he's saying, no, adhyastatva matra upadeshesya, that is superimposed. That much only I'm giving in this Sarparaju example. I'm not saying that because Sarpa is pratibhasika, it's not real. But Jagat is Vyavaharika, it's intersubjective. One person may see a snake, the second one may not see anything. They might see only the rope. So, the Drishtanta and Drashtantika, what is given as an example and what is being explained, they need not have all the attributes intact and there is a direct parallelism not required. Try to understand what is being explained. That much only in the example you have to take. You do not say this is not the best example. You have to understand what part of the example is relevant to the discussion. That is a small philosophical point, logical point is making. दृष्टांत धर्मः सर्वे सर्वथा द्रष्टान्तिके समन्वया इति असंजमस इति asamajasa iyam niyamaha. So there is no such rule as such. This cannot be sustained. That the drishtanta, the example, all the rules, whatever you see there, all the features will also be present in drashtantika. That is not what we are trying to say. We are trying to say drishtanta, drashtantika. What part of that story is relevant to the discussion, that much you should take into consideration. Nahi, okay. Tatha sati, if that is so, he's giving an example why that is a invalid kind of an argument. Tatha sati sahridaya alhadanaya upata chandravan mukham iti upama. The granddad has come home, is looking at the granddaughter and addressing her. Your face, you are a beautiful girl with the face like that of the moon. Chandramukhi. Your face dazzles like the moon. The baby girl is very happy, very fond of the grandpa, and they have a good day playing with each other. But I think actually if you try to draw a parallel that Chandramukhi means the mukha, the face of the girl, and the moon, there should be a direct parallel of all the attributes. Then you know what is the problem? I'll tell you what's the problem. The Vedanti says, Tadagata kalankatwadi sporanena pratyuta udvejika pisyat. Now, what do you have in the moon? You have this kalanka, right? Those black spots in the moon. You call them stains, you call them black spots, whatever. You see those areas of darkness in the moon. It's not very clean slate, it's not all dazzling. Now, what happens is, when you're telling a girl you're Chandramukhi, are you telling her then that would mean instead of making her happy, she will get angry, saying that, do you suspect I have pimples or something, or I'm not beautiful? There's some spots or dark spots on my face. Are you trying to refer to that? No, that's not what is being referred to. We are trying to praise you as the most beautiful girl we have in the family. Therefore, you don't try to draw a complete comparison of all the attributes in the example and the prasanga, the context in which we are discussing it. Therefore, only the adhyastattva has to be taken as the point of reference when you're comparing Rajju Sarpa story with the Jagat being superimposed on the Brahman. That is the small philosophical point he's trying to make. Nama rupatmakasya jagataha. The Jagat has names and forms. Mithyatva abhave, if it is not real, if it's not unreal, means mithya means what is anirvachaniya, neither true nor false. So mithyatva abhave, and what is mithyatva? Trikala badhyatva. Trikala avadhyata is satya. Badhyatva is mithya. What can be sublated, refuted? Mithyatva abhave, if Jagat is not false, is not mithya, namadi rupa pratitihi pramasyat, everything will become prama, valid knowledge. Then how do you get liberation? What do you mean by Brahma Jnana? Jagat Jnana is perfect. How do you have Brahma Jnana? That is what all the Dvaitis say, that Jagat is also real, Brahman is also real. If the bondage that we have becomes real, can we escape? That is why Advaita Vedanta says the bondage we are weeping over, wailing over, crying over is imaginary. This bondage is not real. Swarupata, we are all liberated. But we don't realize it because layers and layers of misunderstanding we are trying to eliminate by doing Vedanta at the end. That is how he's explaining. So he's saying Pramasyad. And look at the Chandogya Upanishad. Vacharammanam vikaro namadheyam mritika ityevam satya. You have the clay out of which you have pot, ghata, pata, all these things are created. These are all names and forms. What is real is that clay. Similarly, out of the Brahman, these whole vivid, diverse realities have emerged as manifest, phenomenal forms, underlying which what is real is the Brahman, that pure consciousness. Iti sritya vikaranam ansatyatvam means asatyatvam. The vikaras, nirvikara Brahma alone is real. Ansatyatvam is asatyatvam. So all these vikaras, like the clay alone is real, gold alone is real. You have necklace and nose pin and ring and then armlets and bracelets. These are names. Can you have only bracelets without gold? Gold alone is real. These are names and forms. So Brahman alone is real. The rest of it is superimposition of names and forms. Vikaranam ansatyatum nirvikarasya param brahmana satyatam cha pratipadyate. Why are we discussing all this? We need not forget it. Prajnanam Brahma, that is the Mahavakya Vichara we are doing. Therefore, why Prajnanam is equated with Brahman and what Brahman means, we are discussing that. Therefore, he is saying, Tad anurodhena, Tat pratitehe, Bhrantitva siddhaye. All the samsara appears as real, and that is not real. That Bhranti we have to establish. Tesam adhyasavasena mithyatvam eva drishtantena mudyate. Therefore, the Sarparajju Nyaya, we bring the story of how the rope looks like a snake in order to drive home the point, hammer it into the brains that, look here, my boy, you're obsessed with this external material reality, the social, emotional, political. A lot of people watch the social media videos in the morning, and by evening, they are wise. With what? One particular theory about the world. They are on one political side and they are ready to break their marriages and families and fight with anyone because of the political position they are taking. Are fools, because these are all mental creations imposed by you, by powerful people who want you to be their followers and supporters. They have nothing to do with who you are. They don't bother. Nor will they ever solve any of your problems. You got to look at the purpose of your life and live your life. But once you get sort of trapped in these illusions and delusions, which are created, manufactured, then imposed on us. Interestingly, Vedanta tells the story differently, saying, no, no, it's your vasanas and kamanas as a result of which you are falling, you fall a victim to all this. You go to a mall, there's shops and selling all kinds of things. Depending on your purse and what you want to buy, you make a decision as a consumer as to what you want to buy. No, the mall is not responsible for all the money that you spend. You are responsible for the choices you make. And Vedanta tries to explain to us that these are names and forms. Please understand what is underlying all these names and forms. And there is adhyasa. Adhyasa vasena mithyatvam eva drishtantena buddhyate. The snake and rope story we tell in order to say that this apparent reality, the phenomenal reality, is only a superimposition. Nadu drishtante vidyamanaha sarve dharmaha atra vivakshita. In Drishtanta and Sansara, there's so many things. The Sarpa is Pratibhasika, it's just delusional. Sansara is not Pratibhasika, it's Vyavaharika. It is a certain modal existence, it's not completely false. It's real, it's intersubjective, it's verifiable, it's factual, and yet we say it's not real. In what sense? We're talking about two levels of truths. These are phenomenal realities, not to be denied, but not to be accepted as ultimate reality. That is how we are making a very subtle line of distinction between pratibhashika, vyavaharika, and a paramarthika. Tad anurodhena tat pratiptehe bhrantitva siddhaye tesam adhyasavasena mithyatvam eva drishtantena buddhyate nada drishtante vidyamanaha sarve dharmaha atra vivakitaha. Drishtante is the jagat and everything is present of the snake. Do you have everything that you compare snake with the jagat? No. अन्यथा अदरवाइज रज्जु सर्पस्य प्रातिभासिक सत्त्वम जगतः व्यवहारिक सत्त्वमिति व्यवस्थितो व्यवहार न घटेत. If you try to equate the snake with jagat and try to fight with me, remember the snake doesn't even exist. It's just a delusional thing. Jagat exists in a phenomenal sense. So it's far more real than the snake, which is just delusion. You put a torchlight, the snake vanishes, the rope appears. You put a torchlight, Jagat, the sansar, the world, vanishes. No, it doesn't. But ultimately not real. Therefore, Kingcha Adhyase Purvanuvavo Apekshita iti Satyam. What is Adhyasa? I'm just quoting the lines from the Adhyasa Bhashya, and Shankaracharya explains. Koyam Adhyasa Nama. What is this Adhyasa? Is explaining. Smriti Rupaha Paratra Purva Drishtavabhashaha. Smriti Rupaha, remember one thing. You cannot have a superimposition of a name and a form that you don't know. There is a piece of gold and you say it's a nose pin. If you have never seen a nose pin, how will you call it a nose pin? So Smriti Rupaha Paratra Purva Drishta Avabhasa. What you had seen before somewhere else, now you're imposing it here. Purva Drishtasya Kashyachita Vastunaha of something Dharmasya Smriti Sadrishaha Adhyasaha Anyatra Pratiyate Sa Adhyasa. I keep giving this example, which happens to many of us during school days. So, or in a party, you have gone somewhere, you go to Rath Yatra or those big festivals that you have in India, the Durga Pujas, and you see a girl wearing a green color kurta paijama, which one of your cousin sisters loves to wear. Her hairstyle is slightly similar, and you shout at her, Didi, and she looks back, yes, how can I help you? And she's some other woman. She's not your Didi. That is that, Smriti Rupaha Purva Drishtasya, Anyatra Avabhasaha Atasmin Tad Buddhi, which is not there, you have that Buddhi there. Adhyasa. Udaranataha Rajyo Sarpa Brahmaha Sukto Rajata Brahma. You have the nectar in which you think it's a silver. And therefore, Eka Chandra, Dvichandra Brahma, if you have some eye problem, then you look at the moon, it looks like that, two moons. Tena eva prakarena vivichyate. Anyatra anya dharmadhyasa. That's also another way of doing nirvachana of what is adhyasa. So there is dharma adhyasa, there is dharmi adhyasa. We'll go. Ekasya dharmasya anyatra aropaha. So within itiretara adhyasa, we'll go there. It will all be explained. Kincha adhyase purvanuvavo apekshita iti satyam. Yes, that is required. Sacha pramatmaka eva iti na nirbandha. Now the problem is, the Dvaitis or the Nyayikas will say, okay, now I've got hold of you. You are seeing this Jagat, I'm doing some superimposition. This should be something real that I have seen before, right? Snake I have seen, snake was real. I'm superimposing it on a rope. So I have seen something which was real, that I'm superimposing on this Jagat and calling it this, on Brahman. So that was real. Then Vedanta says, no, there is no such rule. Na nirvanta. भ्रमात्मकेन अपि अनुभवेन उत्तरोत्तर अध्यास सिद्ध्यति. So you have a brahmatmaka jnana. So what happens is that you had seen maybe a air root of a plant, and you had read somewhere in Africa you have dangerous snakes who intermix with plant life and they try to get their victims. And you thought that is some kind of a dangerous snake in an African jungle. Now you are seeing a rope in the backyard of your house at night, and you think it is that dangerous snake from Africa which has entered. But that snake you hadn't seen. It was just a Brahmagyana. So one false knowledge. I give you another example which you may be able to relate. Sometimes in dream we see certain things which we have seen during the waking state. That's how we see dreams. We mix what we have seen with our vasanas. That is the creative input. You have seen elephants, you have seen tennis matches, and then you see elephants playing tennis. Tennis you have seen, elephants you have seen. The creative part out of your vasana is elephants playing tennis, and therefore psychiatrists and the dream analysts come and try to make sense of it. What do you mean when you see a dream called elephants are playing table tennis? No? Now, you might relate to it. It's quite possible that in one dream, few years back, you had visited a desert in which there was an oasis and there was a beautiful house surrounded by a garden, and there was a meditation hall where you have the preceptors or spiritual counselors from Buddhism, from Christianity, from Sufi, spiritual Islam, not the ISIS kind of Islam. You have Vedic, the Upanishadic, wise men. So they all are there, but they are not visible. You can go to that room and meditate, and if you have ask any question, you ask it. So immediately out of nothing, one acharya or guru appears and answers your question. Just imagine the story. You had seen this. Okay? Then what happens on a later date, you are going to somewhere, some abandoned place, you see a building, and then you are going and you're sitting there, and suddenly you are feeling some acharya will come. There is some slight resemblance of this particular house you are seeing with the house you had seen in your dream. You have a moment of deja vu. You're sitting inside and you think, will some acharya be there to solve my problem? No, just a possibility. Similarly, Vedanta says you can have one Vranti Jnana which becomes a causal layer for a series of Brahma Jnanas. And why are we arguing like this? Because actually, we don't want to admit this Jagat, there is anything real which is superimposed on Brahman. These are. Could you kindly mute yourself? Okay. Anyone else? Yeah. Let me. Okay. So what happens? It becomes easy if we this is very beautiful. Look at it. So what happens is saying that अन्यथा रज्जुसर्पस्य प्रतिभासिक सत्यत्वं जगतः व्यावहारिक सत्यत्वम् इति व्यवस्था व्यवहार व्यवस्थितो व्यवहार न घटेत किंच अध्यासे पूर्वानुभवो अपेक्षित इति सत्यम न च प्रमात्मक एव इति निर्बन्धः. It doesn't have to be real because we have only one presumption leading to another presumption leading to another presumption because we are anadi. Jiva is anadi, ajnana is anadi. That is our cosmological formulation. We are trying to explain the reality in our theological framework. So, api anubhave uttarotara adhyasa siddhyati. Advaita naya means that the theoretical framework. Advaita naya in the Jnana Parampara, avidyaya anaditvad. Avidyayaha, this is sixth case, Sasti Vibhakti Ekavachana, avidyayaha anaditva angikarena. Avidya Ajnana is without a beginning. Some people say there is first Ishvara, then he creates. The problem is Ishvara and Ajnana. Yeah, first comes Ishvara, then he creates Ajnana, Maya. Now they at the same time. These are all superimpositions. Yeah, I would like to hear maybe Amitabh will someday tell us how the creation begins, because they're saying there is something called quantum vacuum, and then there is some excitement and a feel, and now, but what was there before that? What was there before that? A lot of people have been thinking about it. What was there before Big Bang, and what was there before that? This is a cosmological question. This is a very hard ontological question. Now, there, you need to sort of meditate and figure out how they're explaining. Simultaneously, the Ishvara appears, the Avidya also appears. They don't have any beginning. This is a ontological presumption, axiomatic. There is no proof. A lot of things had no proof. They came up with axioms, and later on, we found mathematical formulations to prove them. Isn't it? Similarly, here there are axiomatic acceptance that avidya doesn't have a beginning, because there will be anavastha dosha. So it starts when? No, there's nothing like this. It's cyclical. Therefore, he's saying, Kincha adhyasa, Advaita ne avidyayaha anaditva, because you accept that doesn't have a beginning, and therefore, purva avidyaya uttara brahmaha siddhyati. So there is one purva vidya, there is uttarakalina vidya, then there is another. So essentially, different ways of misunderstanding what reality is and doing mental projections and frameworks. It doesn't have a beginning. Anavastha dosha is precluded. प्राक्तन सृष्टि वासनात्मिका अविद्या आद्यतन सृष्टौ चतुर्मुखादि अध्यासम कल्पयति इत्युक्तो न कापि क्षतिः. Now what he's saying is this first adhyasa, that Indra superimposed on Brahman, which is pure consciousness, then you're calling it Indra, you're calling it Manushya, you're calling it Devata. Then he's saying praktana srishti vasanatmika. There was another srishti and there was a desire as a result of that. Avidya adyatana srishto. Now today there is another srishti. There is this beautiful discussion in the Puranas. How smart and sharp was Rama? The answer is like Rama. But was there another Rama? The Shastragara smiles and says, yeah, there was another Rama. And when? He's saying in the preceding Treta Yuga. Because this reality here for us is cyclical. Time is not a linear thing. It's all cyclical. It's all presumptuous. And therefore, they're able to say, Ram is smart like Ram. And when is the second Ram? Yeah, the previous cycle that we had. So, this is how they're moving, and therefore, I cannot do anything. Let the phone ring. So, it's saying now, Kincha प्राक्तन सृष्टि वासनात्मिका अविद्या आद्यतन सृष्टो चतुर्मुखादि अध्यासम कल्पयति इति उक्तो न कापि क्षतिः. So there is no fault, there is nothing wrong if you imagine that the earlier vasanatikma, that earlier srishti, that is the cause for the imagination today. We are able to do the adhyasa. I'll do one more line, then we'll stop here. Ata eva bhasya adhyasa lakshanam Paratra Purva Drishtavabhasa iti uktam. This adhyasa you have to understand. It's one of the most beautiful, I would say, adhyasa bhashya, if you look, and in the English translation of it, I put it here in the top, I think. Is it here in this page or in the next page? Yeah. But we will do it well tomorrow because that will take a little time. You have to do. So this is saying, naisargikoyam loka vyavaharaha. This keeps, it doesn't have any beginning. It's without a beginning. So you have one dharma imposed on another dharma. The nature, the consciousness of the Brahman is superimposed on the Jada. And our qualities are superimposed on Brahman. That's how, it's very easy for people that who is Param Brahma is Lord Krishna. Why? It's easy for us to relate to it. Or it's Ma Kali. And there are a lot of other cults. They are not even happy to go to that level. They are obsessed with their own cult figure. It could be, I don't want to take any names. So there is a human being and he's going to solve all my problems. He has all the powers. They're happy with it. And there is no problem. Because it depends on, Shankaracharya always says, adhikari bhedat. Everybody is not capable of understanding these fine points being made by